This message can even be imprinted on the daughter if the mother is the one who has experienced this trauma. Trauma, usually sexual trauma, at the hands of males inflicted upon the mother of the girl who becomes a lesbian. This prevents a girl from forming a healthy female gender identity based on her mother. Because her mother herself has a severely damaged female gender identity, she learns from her mother that femininity attracts danger and abuse. Psychiatrist Dr. Susan Bradley and psychologist Dr. Kenneth Zucker found in their studies of severely gender-disturbed girls that their mothers had a history of severe and chronic sexual abuse of an incestuous nature. As they explain in their book, the femininity of these mothers had always been clouded by this experience, which rendered them quite wary about men and masculinity, and created substantial dysfunction in their sexual lives. In terms of psychosocial transmission, the message to the daughters was that being female was unsafe. The mothers had a great deal of difficulty in instilling in their daughters a sense of pride and confidence about being female. Of one of her lesbian patients, Dr. Siegel said that as a child, her inability to accept her femininity was because identification with her mother was impossible. In addition, all of Dr. Siegel's lesbian patients had been exposed to their fathers having abusive, violent sex with their mothers. Here, she describes the experience of one of her patients. Terrified, Cecilia hid under her mother's bed. She was certain that father was killing mother. She turned her awakened, strong, aggressive, and vengeful feelings on her father. She hated him for injuring her mother. After witnessing her father violently sexually assaulting her mother, Cecilia was ready to believe anything she was told. Cecilia's mother told her of men's brutality to women. Exposure to her parents' sadomasochistic sex left her disgusted and fearful of her father. Of yet another lesbian patient, Dr. Siegel says, Pepina's mother viewed men as coarse brutes. As lesbianism expert, Dr. Siegel explains, the mothers of lesbians never characterized their husbands as complementary, loving partners. Instead, the fathers were experienced and represented to the children either as feared and unwanted intruders or as fools. As psychoanalyst Dr. Gerald Schonewolf explains, mothers would draw the daughter to themselves and confide in them about problems with father, telling them things like, all men care about is using you for sex. Hence, there was an unspoken barrier between father and daughter. The daughters would end up despising their fathers for allowing this to happen, while repressing their anger at their mothers. Another way the gender identity disorder of lesbianism can develop is as a direct trauma response to being raised in a misogynistic culture or religion, which causes a girl to be completely unaware that men are even capable of loving women because she has only observed men hating women. She can only find comfort in the arms of other women who share this deep wound to their female souls. This is exactly why the Islamic world has by far the highest rates of homosexuality on earth. Ironic how so many lesbians are against patriarchy when the most extreme forms of patriarchy are actually what cause aberrations like homosexuality in the first place. Extreme patriarchies create such an intense hatred for women that rampant homosexuality in both sexes is the only inevitable and direct result. In Saudi Arabia, the center of the Islamic world, as well as one of the most patriarchal and misogynistic places on earth, the rates of homosexuality in both sexes are extremely high.
بالإضافة لذلك في دراسة في مكتب الإشراف الاجتماعي هذه الدراسة برضو خطيرة جدا تقول هذه الدراسة إنه نسبة 46% من الطلبة في مدينة الرياض يعانون من الشذوذ الجنسي 25% من الطلبة في مدينة جدة يعانون من الشذوذ الجنسي.
طب هذا يعني شيء جديد في السعودية أن تنشر عبر الصحف مقالات، هناك مقالات كتبت عن الموضوع. الدراسات التي ذكرتها ما تعتبرينه شيء جديد في السعودية؟
Misogyny is deeply shattering to the developing psyches of both male and female children. For males in Islamic cultures, their hatred and disgust of women and their view of women as inferior leads them to prefer sexual intercourse with men and boys. And for women in these cultures, the trauma, abuse, and terror inflicted upon them by men leads them to only feel sexually safe with other women. Also, despite what Hollywood tells us, extreme hatred of women and misogyny is a very common cause of male homosexuality. The average male homosexual is not the flamboyant type who tries to act like a woman. The more common type of male homosexual all throughout history has been the type who despise femininity and who are obsessed with caricatures of masculinity in a pathological, narcissistic way. This type of male homosexuality is the ultimate expression of male narcissism. These types of male homosexuals look down on other homosexual males who try to act feminine. This is the type of male homosexuality that is very common in Islamic cultures. Misogyny is the main reason Islamic cultures have the highest rates of homosexuality on earth. Misogyny has been a part of many cultures for thousands of years, and as a direct result, homosexuality has also been around for thousands of years. Misogyny is the root of much of male homosexuality, just as it is the root of lesbianism. Misogyny creates gender imbalance, and gender imbalance creates sexual perversions, such as homosexuality. In the following quotes, a Muslim woman from Saudi Arabia describes how her daughter became a lesbian as a direct trauma response to the misogynistic culture she was raised in. In my country, the sexual tension between those of the same sex is palpable. Any foreigner who has lived in Saudi Arabia for any length of time becomes aware that homosexual relations are rampant within the kingdom. Gatherings of love-starved Saudi women erupt into spontaneous exuberance, bursting forth in the form of a wild party with singing of forbidden love, accompanied by lusty dancing. Women dance lewdly with other women, flesh to flesh. Women whisper of love and plan clandestine meetings, while their drivers wait patiently in the parking lots. They will later deliver these women to their husbands, who are that same evening being captivated by other men. The makeup of our society drew my son more closely into my husband's life outside of our home. This basic fact of our Muslim heritage was the first shock of my daughter's young life. My daughter's intense jealousy of her father's affections brought to mind my own unhappy childhood. Throughout her childhood, my daughter's angers ebbed and flowed. My husband and I doubled our efforts to assure our daughters that they were as loved and esteemed as our son. While this proved fruitful in our home, my daughter could not ignore the fact that she was considered less worthy than her brother in the world outside our walls. It is a distressing habit of all Saudi Arabians to pour attention and affection on the heads of male children, while ignoring female children. My daughter was a bright girl who was hard to deceive, and the uncompromising facts of Arab life burned into her consciousness. In the following, she describes an incident at a family gathering when her misogynistic father displayed how much he hated his granddaughters for being female. Grandfather's attentions were devoted to his grandsons. While admiring my son's heightened figure, my father ignored my daughter, who was tugging on his sleeve to show him an ant farm the children had built and proudly displayed. I saw my father as he brushed her aside and proceeded to squeeze my son's biceps. My daughter was stung by her grandfather's preference for her brother and his indifference to her. My heart plunged for the pain I knew was in her heart. My father, who had never held a high opinion of the female sex, made no pretense of his feelings now. Scornfully, he ordered, "Remove this horrible creature from my sight." Imagine the damage this grandfather did to the feminine spirit of his granddaughter by hating women this much. When you understand that lesbianism is caused by wounded femininity, it is not surprising that his granddaughter became a lesbian. Once her parents found out she was a lesbian, their daughter acknowledged that from her earliest memory she had hated all men. As her mother explains, "I felt a twinge of guilt, wondering if my own prejudices against the male sex had seeped into the embryo I had given life. It was as if my daughter had been forewarned of the wicked nature of men while lying cradled in my womb." As I have discussed in other videos, gender identity begins to be imprinted upon children by their parents even before birth. The development of her daughter's lesbianism is described in a straightforward way. She made the discovery that men are her enemies and that women are her friends. Her daughter explained how she was deeply scarred and pushed into lesbianism when her father tried to practice polygamy. Polygamy is an extreme form of child abuse. Polygamy is deeply traumatic for children and damages their psychological development. In addition to the extreme psychological damage caused by polygamy, polygamy also causes extreme genetic damage thanks to the fact that it severely limits the male gene pool. Inbreeding is a very serious and basically unavoidable problem in polygamy. Not only is inbreeding sexually perverted, which in itself causes sexual confusion, but it also leads to very high rates of physical defects and mental illnesses, such as homosexuality. Inbreeding is permitted in the Islamic religion because Prophet Muhammad married his first cousin and because the Quran explicitly allows it. Polygamy, which is basically socially or religiously sanctioned infidelity, causes extreme psychological and developmental harm to both male and female children, psychological and developmental harm that often leads to mass mental illness and extreme levels of sexual perversion. This can be clearly observed in both Islamic and polygamist Mormon communities. There are many reasons for this. One reason is that polygamy always, by default, deprives children of time and bonding with their fathers, which is extremely harmful to both male and female children, and has been shown to be a large contributor to a child becoming LGBT. Another reason is that polygamy prevents children from seeing a healthy example of romantic love and fidelity between a male and female, which is necessary for children to see so that they can be imprinted on by a healthy heterosexual model of love. Yet another reason is that polygamy causes extreme levels of psychological stress, heartbreak, and depression in the mothers. As I will explain later in this video, psychological stress and depression in the mother has been proven to be a factor that directly contributes to children developing LGBT confusion. Polygamy is very similar, if not basically identical in many cases, to single motherhood, and as a result, children are subjected to all the well-known harms to children that come about as a direct result of single motherhood. These are only some of the long list of reasons why polygamy harms children and strongly contributes to LGBT development. Having a psychologically unhealthy mother is one of the key factors in a little girl developing lesbianism, and polygamy makes it impossible for a mother and a wife to experience true psychological health. Polygamy also causes significant psychological dysfunction and distress in the husbands, and psychologically unhealthy fathers are also a cause of LGBT confusion in children. A perfect example of the sexual confusion caused by polygamy can be seen in the most famous polygamist family in America, the Brown family. Out of the 15 biological children born into this polygamist family of 1 man and 4 women, 2 of the daughters are in lesbian relationships, and one of these daughters is transgender and mutilated her body by cutting off her breasts. This is despite the fact that they were raised in a religion that is officially against LGBT, because it doesn't matter if a religion is officially against sexual perversion when the religion itself promotes dysfunctional dynamics and ideas that themselves directly cause sexual perversion, such as misogyny and polygamy. The LGBT identities of these daughters are a direct result of their polygamist father not loving their mothers. Polygamist husbands always have a favorite wife, while they neglect the rest of their wives. This is because men and women are not capable of experiencing genuine romantic love and pair bonding with more than one person at a time. In order for a child to develop healthy heterosexuality, they need to see their father be a good, loving, faithful husband to their biological mother. Being a good husband and a good father is impossible in polygamy. In addition, one of the sons in this family committed suicide as a result of his polygamist father abandoning him and his mother in favor of the children of his favorite wife. Men cannot pair bond with more than one woman because only 2 people exist in a pair. Children need to see their biological parents pair bonded and in love in order to develop healthy heterosexuality. Studies show that societies with father-present patterns of child socialization produce men who are less inclined to exclude women from public activities than their counterparts in father-absent societies. Studies show that father-child relationships have a significant effect on female status. The American Journal of Sociology found that the better fathers that men are, the better they treat women, and that in cultures where fathers are devoted, caring, and affectionate with their children, women are more honored and respected, included in their spirituality and spiritual traditions, and treated with fairness. In cultures where fatherhood is taken seriously, women have higher status, and where women have higher status, the rates of both male and female homosexuality are lower. There is both correlation and causation between cultural misogyny and high rates of homosexuality.